The Atlantic stretched wide and unbroken, a lifeline for the Allied war effort. Convoys of merchant ships carried food, ammunition, and raw materials across vast oceans. To those aboard, these convoys were survival itself, yet beneath the waves lurked a silent, deadly threat: the German U-boat. Germany's submarines had become some of the most feared weapons of the war. They struck with precision and patience, exploiting every weakness in Allied defenses. U-boat commanders were both sailors and technicians, mastering sonar, periscopes, and torpedo mechanics. Each patrol demanded discipline, endurance, and calm under pressure. The ocean was both ally and obstacle, offering concealment but demanding skill and vigilance. For the Allies, defending convoys was a monumental challenge. Merchant ships became moving fortresses, escorted by warships equipped with sonar, depth charges, and coordinated tactics. The struggle was relentless. For every U-boat sunk, others adapted, striking again with deadly efficiency. Into this dangerous theater entered USS Guadalcanal and Task Group 22.3, patrolling off West Africa. Their mission was simple yet perilous: locate, engage, and capture the lurking U-boats. The men aboard were a mix of young sailors and seasoned officers, all prepared for the tense, invisible struggle that lay beneath the waves, a struggle that would soon produce one of the most remarkable events of the Atlantic War: the capture of U-505. In the vastness of the Atlantic, the American Navy moved with precision and purpose. Task Group 22.3 was a small but highly trained unit, designed to hunt the invisible predators beneath the waves. At its heart sailed the USS Guadalcanal, a vessel outfitted for anti-submarine warfare, accompanied by destroyers and escort ships. Together, they formed a network of coordination, sonar, and firepower, a mechanism of vigilance ready to strike at the slightest hint of a threat. The men aboard these ships were a mixture of experience and youth. Some had survived earlier convoys, knowing the terror that could come from a single torpedo. Others were fresh from training, disciplined, and eager to prove themselves. Each sailor understood that patience was as vital as courage. Days could pass without sighting an enemy, followed by sudden, heart-stopping moments of contact. Their world was one of constant readiness, where sonar pings and periscope glints could mean life or death. At the center of this force was Captain Daniel Gallery, a leader who combined strategic foresight with the ability to inspire calm in tense situations. Gallery's approach was meticulous. Every movement of his ships, every depth charge, every radio silence had a purpose. The men trusted him, not blindly, but because his method had repeatedly produced results. Under his command, the task group functioned like a single organism, each ship a vital organ in a finely tuned body, ready to respond instantly to any sign of the enemy. The Atlantic in 1944 was a theater of invisible war. U-boats prowled beneath the surface, relying on stealth, cunning, and calculated aggression. The American task force, in turn, relied on coordination, intelligence, and patience. It was a game of tension and timing, a contest of nerves played across miles of open ocean. It was in this high-stakes environment, amid endless waves and silent danger, that the task group would encounter U-505, a submarine whose capture would become one of the most daring and consequential operations of the Atlantic War. The Atlantic waves stretched endlessly, hiding both danger and opportunity. On June 4, 1944, Task Group 22.3 moved through this vast expanse with practiced vigilance. Radar hummed quietly, sonar pings echoed beneath the water, and sailors watched the horizon with trained eyes. Every shadow, every ripple demanded attention. Every patrol was a silent test of patience and skill. Beneath the waves, U-505 glided like a predator. Commanded by Captain Lieutenant Peter Zech, it had already survived multiple patrols, attacking Allied convoys with precision. But this mission carried subtle risks. The German crew had grown confident, perhaps too confident. They surfaced at night to recharge batteries, a standard procedure that made them temporarily visible to the skies and seas. Every routine action carried potential peril, and small miscalculations could prove fatal. Radar aboard the USS Guadalcanal detected a faint anomaly, a blip on the screen that suggested movement where there should be none. The task group adjusted formation, closing in without alerting the enemy. The men held their positions with disciplined calm, knowing that premature action could allow the submarine to escape into the vast Atlantic. As the hours passed, the U-boat made a critical error. Its crew failed to maintain strict radio discipline, and minor navigational choices left it in predictable paths. Task Group 22.3 recognized the opportunity. Orders were relayed in silence. Ships adjusted course, sonar operators focused intently, and every sailor became part of a synchronized hunt. The tension aboard the Guadalcanal was almost tangible. For days the crew had trained for this moment, imagining the challenge of engaging a submerged U-boat. Now the target was in sight, still invisible, still deadly, yet vulnerable. The task group moved like a shadow around its quarry, closing the circle with precision. Meanwhile, the German crew remained unaware of how closely they were being watched. Czech, experienced and cautious, relied on routine procedures, but the very predictability of their operations became their vulnerability. The Americans, patient and meticulous, waited for the right moment, ready to strike with a combination of strategy, technology, and audacity that would soon change the course of the Atlantic War. The stage was set. A silent battle was about to begin, one that would push both men and machines to their limits and lead to an operation that few would believe could succeed: the capture of U-505 intact. The calm of the Atlantic was deceptive. Beneath the waves, U-505 moved with stealth and purpose, unaware that it had entered a trap. Task Group 22.3 had closed in, surrounding the submarine with disciplined precision. Every sonar ping, every adjustment of the escort vessels was calculated to pressure the enemy without giving away their intentions. Suddenly, the first depth charges were released. Explosions shook the water, sending shockwaves that rattled the hull of U-505. Inside the submarine, the German crew felt the vibrations as if the ocean itself were pressing against them. Alarm sounded. Czech ordered evasive maneuvers, attempting to dive deeper, but the submarine had been previously damaged and could not descend fully. The pressure mounted. The water around them seemed alive, hostile, inescapable. Above the surface, the American ships moved like a living organism. Each vessel responded instantly to sonar readings, adjusting position and timing their attacks with brutal precision. The goal was not to destroy the submarine outright, at least not yet. Their mission was riskier, more daring, to capture it intact. Every charge, every maneuver was intended to force U-505 to surface, to present an opportunity that few believed possible. Inside the U-boat, tension reached its peak. The crew frantically attempted repairs, tried to manage ballast, and scrambled to maintain silence. Yet the relentless rhythm of explosions, the unyielding pressure from above, and the realization that they were trapped began to break their composure. Czech, experienced though he was, recognized the danger but had few options. Each decision carried the weight of life and death for himself, his men, and the very submarine he commanded. Then the inevitable happened. U-505, battered by the depth charges and unable to dive further, began to surface. Its conning tower broke the water first, followed by the rest of the vessel. The German crew, realizing they could no longer maintain control, initiated scuttling procedures, opening valves, preparing charges, trying to destroy documents and equipment. Every second counted. The submarine could sink before the Americans had a chance to board. The task group reacted instantly. Boats were lowered, sailors readied, and every hand on deck knew the risk. Boarding a partially flooded, potentially explosive submarine in open water was almost unheard of. The moment required not just courage, but precision, coordination, and an unshakable nerve. The Americans moved like clockwork, each man fulfilling his role, each movement rehearsed in countless drills. The stage was set for one of the most daring acts of the Atlantic War. The submarine, vulnerable and exposed, waited as the boarding party prepared to take the impossible step, to enter an enemy vessel while it still floated, under the threat of scuttling charges and unseen dangers inside. It was a moment suspended between chaos and control, where years of training, intelligence, and courage would converge. One false move could destroy the submarine, kill the boarders, or allow the enemy to escape entirely. Yet the men pressed forward, ready to turn the tide of the Atlantic in a single, audacious operation. The ocean's surface churned with tension as U-505 floated, battered and vulnerable. The German crew had abandoned much of the vessel, fleeing to lifeboats or attempting to scuttle it. Yet danger lingered in every corner. Flooded compartments, armed scuttling charges, and the ever-present risk of sudden explosions. Entering a live enemy submarine in open water was a feat few had ever attempted, and many considered it impossible. At the front, Lieutenant Albert David led the boarding party. Small, agile, and fearless, David and his sailors were acutely aware of the stakes. Every step across the deck could trigger a hidden charge. Every door opened could flood compartments. The wind whipped, the waves rocked, and beneath the deck, the shadow of potential disaster waited. Yet with resolute calm, the men advanced, securing ropes, tools, and their own nerves. Inside the submarine, the atmosphere was surreal. Rusting machinery groaned under strain. Valves hissed, and seawater seeped into compartments. The Germans had left hastily, leaving behind key intelligence, codebooks, navigational charts, operational orders, and the prized Enigma machine. The Americans moved systematically, compartment by compartment, securing every document and device before it could be destroyed. The boarding was as much mental as physical. Sailors had to work quickly, thinking in advance of the enemy's potential traps, interpreting the intricate layout of the submarine, and coordinating with their shipmates above. Their training, focus, and courage converged in this moment, turning chaos into controlled action. Every secured document, every locked valve, every compartment checked was a step toward victory. Minutes stretched like hours. Yet the Americans persevered. Finally, the boarding party achieved the impossible. U-505 was under Allied control, intact and capable of being towed to a safe harbor. The Enigma machine and code books were now in their hands, treasures of intelligence that would ripple across the Atlantic and alter the course of the naval war. Above the deck, Task Group 22.3 maintained position, vigilant against the possibility of German reinforcements or sudden disaster. The coordination between ships and boarding party exemplified naval precision and courage. Every maneuver, every alert, every order executed flawlessly under immense pressure. The significance of the capture was immediately apparent. The Germans would soon learn that one of their most secret vessels had fallen intact into enemy hands. Yet the Americans kept the operation a secret, understanding that the value of the intelligence depended on remaining hidden from German eyes. The capture of U-505 was not only a tactical victory, but a strategic triumph, a silent, high-stakes achievement that would save countless lives in the convoy battles yet to come. In the history of naval warfare, few operations rivaled the audacity and precision of the U-505 boarding. It was a testament to discipline, courage, and the relentless pursuit of victory, a moment when ordinary sailors executed the extraordinary and turned the tide of an invisible war beneath the waves. With U-505 secured, the boarding party had achieved what many had considered impossible: an intact German submarine, teeming with classified materials and technical secrets. But the true challenge was only beginning. The vessel had to be transported to a safe harbor without sinking, without alerting German forces, and without revealing to the world that a U-boat had been captured intact. Every step now carried strategic weight far beyond the immediate dangers at sea. The Enigma machine, codebooks, and operational logs were treasures of intelligence. The machine itself allowed the Germans to encrypt communications with near-perfect security. The codebooks held the key to deciphering those messages. In the hands of the Allies, these materials transformed the balance of the Atlantic War. Convoys could be rerouted around U-boat patrols, attacks anticipated before they occurred, and thousands of lives preserved. It was not merely a tactical success. It was a strategic game-changer. To maintain secrecy, the U.S. Navy undertook extraordinary measures. U-505 was towed hundreds of miles to Bermuda, hidden from prying eyes. Photographs and reports of the capture were classified, and sailors were sworn to silence. Even within the Navy, few knew the full story. The Germans, unaware that their submarine had been seized, continued to operate under the false assumption that their communications remained secure. This invisibility amplified the value of the intelligence, allowing the Allies to exploit every advantage for months without alerting the enemy. The analysis of the captured materials was meticulous. Cryptographers, linguists, and naval officers combed through charts, logs, and codes, reconstructing the operational patterns of the U-boat fleet. Every patrol route, every Wolfpack tactic, every vulnerability was cataloged. The intelligence gathered from U-505 fed directly into convoy strategies, allowing the Allies to move supplies with unprecedented security. Losses to German submarines dropped, and the ocean, once a perilous gauntlet, became more navigable for Allied vessels. Beyond the practical benefits, the capture had symbolic weight. It demonstrated that even the most lethal German machines could be defeated, not only through firepower but through courage, precision, and ingenuity. The boarding of U-505 became a case study in risk management, coordination, and audacity, an operation where ordinary sailors executed extraordinary feats against a formidable enemy. For the German Navy, the loss was devastating, though invisible. The security breach caused by the capture remained undetected, yet the ripple effects were profound. Their communications were compromised, their patrols disrupted, and their perception of invulnerability shattered, all without ever knowing how close they had come to disaster. U-505 itself became more than a vessel. It became a symbol of Allied intelligence triumph. In the months following the capture, convoys moved more safely, shipping losses decreased, and the men and machines of the Atlantic War were subtly but decisively empowered. The operation had saved countless lives and materially weakened the German submarine threat, all through a single act of courage in the open ocean. The U-505 capture was a triumph of intellect as much as bravery. It was a victory that combined strategy, daring, and foresight, a silent turning point in the long struggle of the Atlantic. The war beneath the waves, invisible to most, had been altered forever, all because a few determined sailors stepped onto a floating enemy vessel against impossible odds and held the line between chance and control. The capture of U-505 resonated far beyond the Atlantic waves. For the German crew, it was a sudden, irreversible defeat. Some were taken as prisoners of war, removed from the battlefields they had once commanded. The U-boat they had operated with skill and pride was now in enemy hands, a silent witness to their failure. Yet their professionalism, even in defeat, was noted. The boarding party had to navigate not just a machine, remnants of a disciplined enemy. For the Americans, the operation became a testament to courage, discipline, and ingenuity. Lieutenant Albert David and his team received commendations, their bravery officially recognized, though the details remained classified for decades. The mission had combined strategy, seamanship, and sheer audacity, proving that careful planning and resolve could overcome even the most formidable threats. U-505 herself survived the war, preserved as a tangible reminder of what was possible when skill met courage. In later years, she would be displayed in a museum, allowing generations to witness firsthand the vessel that had been captured intact against all odds. Visitors could see the hull, the compartments, and even the mechanisms that had once threatened countless lives, and understand the extraordinary effort it took to bring her under Allied control. The broader impact of the operation was profound. The intelligence gained from the Enigma machine and codebooks saved countless lives, reduced shipping losses, and helped tip the Battle of the Atlantic in favor of the Allies. It was a victory that combined mind and courage, strategy and risk, proving that even in the vast, unpredictable ocean, meticulous planning and bold action could prevail. Ultimately, the capture of U-505 remains a story of daring, discipline, and triumph. It was a victory not marked by grandiose battles or sweeping campaigns, but by the quiet, relentless determination of a few men who faced danger head-on. Their actions altered the course of the war beneath the waves and left an enduring legacy, a reminder that courage, skill, and foresight can turn even the most impossible challenge into a defining triumph. The Atlantic would continue to rage, and the war would continue to demand sacrifices on every front. But on that day in 1944, a submarine was captured, a secret was preserved, and a turning point was quietly etched into history. U-505's story stands as a testament to the extraordinary achievements of ordinary sailors, and to the hidden victories that shaped the course of the Second World War.